So let's read the Attack on Titan High School Cast manga. It's basically an alternate universe for AOT, and all of our favorite characters, Eren, Mikasa, Armin, Levi, they act so much different, but they are the same basically. Let's just read it, it's really funny. So for the first chapter of this High School Cast manga, Eren is going to school, and we see Goth Mikasa in the back, and we see Armin getting picked on by Jean, because in this universe, Jean is a bully. And then we see Erwin, Levi, and Hanji, and Erwin is the history teacher, Hanji is the chemistry teacher, and Levi is the janitor, sadly. And then in the next page, Eren stands up for Armin, and he tells Jean, do you think that is fun? And he's like, huh, who the hell are you? And then in the next panel, Eren and Jean start fighting, and Eren says that Jean ripped his shirt, and he says, now I know who you are, understand? And then Armin comes up to him and says, oh my god, you really saved us, like you're like that guy from Kick-Ass. And Mikasa says, you must be the Dark Knight called here forth by my curse to fight off that man. And Eren is like, what? And I just love these interactions right here, like Armin is admiring Eren and Mikasa is being goth. And it's just really funny. Isayama really knows how to do humor. Now into the next chapter. And the next chapter starts off with Armin and Mikasa following Eren. And Armin says, hey, you want to watch 21 Jump Street? And Mikasa's like, hey, let's watch Twilight. And Eren's like, nah. And he says, do not follow me. And he's going down this alleyway. And they're still following him. And he's like, bruh. And then at the very end of the alleyway, Eren stumbles upon Levi and his squad. We see Petra, Gunther, Eld, and Uluo. And man, they're doing some funky business back here. And then Eren, Mikasa, and Armin are kind of sussed out by this. But Gunther says, hey, don't you understand? This is the latest cleaning powder. And Levi says, go and try it at home, you'll see. But Eren, Mikasa, and Armin are like, we didn't see anything, and they run away. And then Elda's like, why did you pack this box in such a suspicious way? Uluo says, I thought it would make the boss remember the good old days and come back to us. And then Levi says, fine. And Levi says, I know what they look like, and his name is Eren. And that is the end of the chapter, guys. Let's get on to the next one. And then the next chapter starts with Eren, Mikasa, and Armin going to the teacher's lounge, and they see Erwin and Hanji, and they say, hey, we wanted to ask you something. You're good friends with Levi, right? And Erwin says, what about Levi? And Hanji says, you can ask us anything. But then on the table, we see those two packs of powder, and then in the back we see Mike. And that's one thing I love about these chapters. There's so many Easter eggs of Attack on Titan in here. I love it. And then Eren, Mikasa, and Armin immediately walk away. They say this school is already his turf and that his organization is gonna retaliate if they tell the police, so this is no good. And then Eren goes to the bathroom to brush his teeth, and then we see Levi, and he says it's time to clean Eren. And then the next panel is Eren and Levi scrubbing the floor, and Eren says this is an amazing cleaning product, and Levi says it just came out. But yeah, guys, another hilarious chapter. Let's do one more of the High School Cast. So the next chapter begins where we see Historia, Emir, Reiner, Bertolt, Marlowe, and Hitch sitting by a tree. And they're all part of this club called the Do-Gooders Club, and they're trying to save students from being tricked by baseless rumors. And then we see Historia talking to herself, and she says this whole club is so boring, and everybody here is just kind of annoying her in some way. And she's just hanging out with these people because she's got nothing better else to do at school. But then she sees Eren. And she sees Eren walking all the time, and she can tell that he is very bored with life. But the thing is, she can relate to him. And she says, even though we've never spoken before, I feel like I understand you. Like, we are both bored with life, and we do not belong here. And she says looking at him makes her feel calm, but then she says, huh? Then she sees Armin, Mikasa, and Marco pull up on Eren, and she says, oh, it looks like he made friends. That's kind of lame. And she says he'll eventually get bored of them, but then Jean walks up to them, and she says, oh, he's standing up for the nerds now too. And she says Eren is forcing himself to do this. He really doesn't want to do it, but then Levi pulls up and bumps them between the conversation. And she says it looks like the janitor and Eren are friends too, and she realizes that she is the one who is all alone. And then she has this really dark look on her face. And Emir asks, what's wrong, Historia? And Historia says that Eren did something awful to her, and everybody looks pissed, and they are gonna do something to Eren. So chapter 5 begins with Eren walking past this dude, but he gets bumped into, and then he gets kicked in the back, and then he gets water poured all over him, and they're just trying to bully him. And they put the sign on his back, and they put some stuff on his locker, and they're just straight up bullies. And we see Annie, we see Jean, and we see Daz, and we see Mina Carolina, and then Armin and Mikasa pull up. And Mikasa says, my Dark Knight, and Armin says, what did you do, Eren? I heard a bunch of rumors that you did something horrible to Historia, and Historia's standing right there, and Eren's like, Historia? And then Historia says, I can't believe that one thing I said about Eren just spread into this big rumor. I can't believe they just turned this into nonsense. I really don't know what to do, and I'm just gonna apologize, and hopefully he understands I'm sorry. And then Eren walks up to her and says, who are you? What did you say that I said? And Historia says, why don't you look inside yourself? I think you know. And everybody is watching this conversation, and then Eren bites Historia's head. Yeah, a crazy way to end this chapter. This is pretty funny though. On to the next one. And then the next chapter begins with a video of Eren biting Historia's head, and we see that he got beat up by everybody else. And because they beat up Eren, the Do-Gooders Club is getting a bad rep, and everybody is basically clowning them and saying, hey, we don't want your do-gooding over here, just get out of here. And basically that one lie Historia told escalated to all of this, and she says she did not mean that. She did not want any of this to happen. She was just bored. And Historia says she's the worst, but then Eren walks up to her and he says, Historia, I realize realize that I hurt you now and I'm sorry? And she says, yeah. And Reiner says, I don't really understand, but I guess it was Eren's fault all along. And then Historia says, he really took the blame for me to protect me. And she admires Eren for that. And Eren says, was that enough, Armin? And Armin says, yeah, that was. And Armin says, all you have to do is spoil the fun once those pleb rumors vanish. And Historia must be feeling tormented right now because Eren really didn't do anything bad to Historia, yet he apologized. And Historia must be feeling bad. And now after this, Historia owes Eren one. And Mikasa's like, oh, a fellow follower of the dark. And then Eren's like, I don't really care as long as I don't get bothered by this anymore. And another classic Armin moment because he's using his brain to manipulate the situation to help out Eren. And this is pretty cool of him. Now into chapter 7. So chapter 7 begins with Eren, Mikasa, Armin, and Marco playing with the Ouija board. And Eren's like, do we really have to do this? But Armin's like, you have literally nothing else better to do, Eren. So, and Marco says, I really don't want to do anything to stir up the spirits. And Eren's like, you really believe in that? And Mikasa says, don't say that. Let us begin. Is anybody out there? And they're just playing with the Ouija board. We see them right here. And then they say it moved. Who's moving it? Not me. And Armin's like, no way. It was actually a ghost, right? And then Marco says, sorry, it was actually me who was moving it. I was just playing around. And Mikasa says, lost souls of the nether world, tell me what Eren likes. And Eren's like, how would they know what I like? And then we see it moving. And then we see Mikasa's name being spelled out. And they say, who is moving it? And they say, not me this time. And they say, maybe it was Marco again. And Eren said, who is that? And then Armin says, there was a student with the same name here. And he says, too bad about the accident. And they say, stop playing around, Eren. And then we see Marco. And Marco says, I would love to see a ghost if they actually exist. But he is technically the ghost because he died. But I get what Isayama's trying to do here. Very funny. And then we get to chapter 8, and Eren says he is very bored with life, and he does not know how much longer this is going to go on. But then he hears a scream, and he goes out the door, and then he sees that everybody is now turned into a zombie, and they're killing each other. And then Armin says something happened during Hanji's chemistry class, and then Mikasa says, run away, my dark knight. And we just see Eren right here staring, and then he gets happy, and then he starts fighting the zombies. And he says, come with me if you want to live. I'm going to kill every single one of these zombies. And then he wakes up in bed and he's like, oh, it wasn't real. And then he starts to cry. But yeah, guys, Eren is living a normal life here, yet he still wants chaos and he just wants some sort of problem. Eren still wants his life to be messed up and the zombie apocalypse is gonna do that for him. So I get what he means. So chapter 9 begins with Eren saying, ever since he had that dream about zombies, he has been very bored with life and he actually wishes that something would endanger humanity so everything could go into chaos and peril, but nothing is happening like that. But he says the only way for something to endanger humanity is by him to take the reins and do that. He says if he really wanted to, he could be a threat to humanity. But then we see Gabby and Falco walking towards him. And Gabby says he looks pretty dead inside even though he must have a good life. And Falco says don't be rude. And she says we have to save him. And she says, excuse me, do you know about Ymir, the one and only god? And he's like, no. But then in the back we see Ymir walking and she says she's the one who will save us all. Please come to our gathering next week. And then Eren points at Ymir and he says, is she one of your recruiting buddies? It's not cool to make her walking around in rags and carrying this bucket. It's just not cool. But see, the thing is, Eren is the only person who can see Ymir, and Gabby and Falco are like, bro, this guy is crazy. And because Eren's the only person who can see Ymir, Gabby thinks he's the chosen one, and she says he's the only person who can receive our revelations of our god. And then Mikasa and Armin are walking behind Eren, but then we see Eren being captured and taken into a van, and they start screaming, and then we see Eren tied up in a chair, and there's a bunch of people around him, and they say, all right, Eren, tell us what our god has to say. Now this is crazy. We're in a cult religious meeting, and this is just weird as hell, but let's get into the next chapter. To start off the chapter, we see Zeke and Yelena, and Zeke asks Eren, what did Ymir tell you? And he says, hell if I know. I don't know anything about that girl dressed in rags. And Zeke says, you hear that? He saw her. Now our prayers have been reached. And Eren just sees how crazy these people are. They are rejoicing over Ymir. He doesn't know anything about this. And while Eren is captured, we see these two doors bust open, and we see Reiner and Historia, and they come and save Eren with Mikasa and Armin. And this is a really cool moment, and they escape with Eren. And Zeke and the other followers are like, how dare you take the messenger of Ymir? We will take him back. And we see these other characters we've seen in AOT before. So chapter 11 starts off with Eren and the gang inside this building, and there's people outside of it, and they say, this is a message for Eren Yeager. Throw away your weapons and surrender at once. So it looks like the cult religious group falsely accused Eren of threatening his friends and holding them hostage, and now everybody's out to get him. And while Eren is tripping about how his life could be potentially ruined, Reiner and Historia are just goofing around, and Historia is just cheering them on like a cheerleader, and Reiner is like, oh, my muscles are so big. Hey, Historia, let's get married. And Ymir's in the back taking videos as well, and then we hear that Historia threw up because of what Reiner said. And then Eren looks up and he sees Ymir walking with her bucket, and Historia is throwing up in the background. And it looks like she's offering Eren the pail of water, and then we see his face, and then we see Peek and Porco, and they say the criminal is now surrendering. And he says the one and only god Ymir has bestowed upon me her message, all of humanity will be saved. And I guess Eren saw Ymir and he's going a little crazy, and he just says this to them. I don't know, but this is funny. But yeah, guys, that was chapter 11. Now into chapter 12, the final chapter of AOT High School Cast. So the chapter begins with Eren, Mikasa, and Armin at a theater, and they say it's the end. That was the final movie. And just for some Easter eggs, we see Marco right here, and we see Ymir with her 3 children. And they're talking about the movie, and Mikasa said, I thought it was good, all the foreshadowing was recovered, and I got to say goodbye to the characters, and she liked it, but Armin thinks differently. And Armin says, well, it looks like Mikasa does not check the discussion sites, and she says, well, I did not hear the Dark Comrades very well. But Armin is mad about the series end, and he says the mystery still remains. I was theorizing over the series for years. It's just so predictable. You think they would give us something more or subvert our expectations, but no, they didn't do that. And Mikasa says, or maybe they just left room for imagination and they just dare to keep it simple. And Armin says, that's not going to solve all my frustrations and questions. I've been waiting for this day for 10 years. And Armin and Mikasa ask Eren what he thought of the movie, and he says he had a great time watching it with you guys, and if there's another one, he would be down to go see it with him. And they just look at each other and they accept the answer that Eren gave them. And Armin says, however, it's really hard to believe that Titans existed over 100 years ago, but we don't know how much of it was based on historical facts. And the last line of the chapter is that I really wish those childhood friends were real, and they say yeah. And that is the end of AOT High School Cast. And now that it's over, I will enter depression. But yeah, guys, that was the manga. It was a great read, and Isayama does not get enough credit for his comedy and dialogue. It's just so good. But let me know, guys, what you thought of those 12 chapters, and while you're here, you might as well give me a follow. I'd really appreciate it, and let me know what other AOT content you would like me to make. I love AOT a lot, so just let me know.